on the explanation of just this narrative that both sides play. Pastor Fisher, I do want to ask you, so yes, of course, I feel like there's shock that all 7 charges they were found not guilty on. However, you're talking about second-degree murder, kidnapping, assault, misconduct, oppression. Which of those did you feel were like maybe second-degree murder? That one's harder. But which one are you extremely just astonished that didn't happen?
All of the ones that align with the duty to intervene.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is, again, clearly part of the departmental policy. So anybody who reads the DOJ report, the investigation from the DOJ report, talks about the same things that were front and center in this trial. Things that the Department of Justice prior to this current administration felt were wrong, egregious, need to be addressed and amended. And so here we are with another opportunity, with the world watching, to show we actually believe in truth coming out in a process like this and have the courage to address those things that are true. I'm not sure that the truth came out here because, again, nobody called Chief Davis to the stand. I don't believe the prosecution called any police officer to the stand, not a lieutenant. The only officer that I saw in uniform was Officer Greg Turner, who was a character witness for Tadarius Bean. And his testimony lasted less than 5 minutes. I think the prosecution asked him one question, if good people can make bad choices, and he said, yeah, and that was it. That was their cross, okay? So if you have the highest ranking law enforcement officer underneath the Shelby County District Attorney, which is Chief Davis, say publicly on national television several times that they violated policy, that they did not follow their training. In the words of Kendrick Lamar, somebody's lying, okay? And somebody should be held to account for the lie that they told. If Chief Davis was just doing this as some political stunt, I'm not saying that she was. I'm saying if she was doing it as a political stunt, then this needs to be called out and it needs to be addressed. If she is sincere in what she believed, then that means there's a gap between policy and culture, because the culture is what came out. The culture is what drove this. The culture is what encourages this type of language. The culture was on full display. The culture is a culture of brutality. Whether it be 1, 5, 10, or 50 officers is one too many. And this is a culture because this went up the chain, right? There were several people who have been, some terminated, some pleading guilty. There were supervisors. You know, all of this is in the DOJ report, which again now holds less weight because of the timing, because of what's happening at the federal administration, because of all of these other elements. And so you're asking me, as I know people will continue to ask, what is the community going to do? The question is, what are those elected in office and appointed by those elected in office going to do? Either you're going to say, we agree with this, and this is the way it is, or you're going to have to say there's something that we are doing that is inadequate and insufficient, and it has to be changed. Because I'm telling you, the way things are right now, we are more than likely going to see another version of Tyre Nichols in the next couple of years. Then we will see a strong enough shift to criminal justice reform like we should. And then people are going to be calling me, asking me if I'm going to be praying to calm people down. And the answer is no. I'm praying right now that people would step up and do what needs to be done so that this doesn't keep being the stain on our city.
The choice not to call C.J. Davis, what do you think was behind that?
I think that is a wonderful question for the prosecution to answer. Again, I understand that there's an element of this that is armchair quarterbacking. And as a pastor who preaches every Sunday and people always telling me what I should or shouldn't preach, I get it, right? And so I'm confessing that up front, but nobody can deny the legitimacy of the question, because what is front and center is whether or not we believe policy actually matters. If policy is nothing more than political performance for the public, a way that you can try to cover a corrupt culture, then I guess we'll be back here, you know, in the next few weeks or the next few months.
So C.J. Davis, now that you kind of go down this path, the Scorpion unit was a little bit of her brainchild, if you will, and it followed a lot of the same of the policy that she put in place in Atlanta with the Red Dog unit. And
Right.
To see that happen under her leadership and here with the Scorpion unit and this BA Scorpion unit trial, unfortunately, and then not to hear from her, what does she have, the next time she decides to take office, you touched on it, but what is her statement going to carry? Is that going to carry a lot of weight? What does she need to say? How are people going to look to her for leadership?
Good question. This is a question she should answer, right? No,
Right.
Pepper, I appreciate the questions, and part of me even bring this up is not just some modest speculation, because this is not some intellectual exercise here.
Right.
I was at Tyre Nichols' funeral. I spoke at his funeral. I brought up young Dolph's case. I eulogized young Dolph. I was at his funeral, right? And so I understand the severity of these developments. And when I said the stain on our city, as much as we talk about, and rightfully so, crime is out of control, gun violence, public health crisis as far as I and so many others are concerned. And so is police brutality. And so those who have a position of power, influence, and authority to do something about it have a duty and a responsibility to do something about it. I didn't tell her to go in front of CNN and MSNBC and whoever else she went in front of and say that these 5 officers, her words, not mine, 5 officers violated policy and did not follow their training. And I did not tell the prosecution, I don't know enough about law, no matter how many law shows I watch. I don't know enough about law to understand their rationale insofar as them not calling not only Chief Davis, but none of the lieutenants that I'm familiar with, unless I missed something. And what I would be concerned about is they know they have to work closely with the police department. And so maybe they were a little bit more modest in this case and less zealous. And if so, what does that mean when you start talking about nobody being above the law and there being a standard of consistency and equality across the board? That doesn't seem to be the case here. I am going to be waiting in tiptoe anticipation to hear what Chief Davis has to say. I've been looking forward to having some one-on-one conversations with her. But beyond all of that, it's not just on her. She came in August, I believe, of 2021 or 2022.
Right before I started working at the station.
So the Scorpion unit, if she got there in August, the Scorpion unit kicks off in October. You can't pay me to believe that she came up with that all by herself. You can't pay me to believe that she's completely responsible for whatever the culture is, and let some even within the department tell it, part of the pushback that she's received is because she's tried to change the culture. I've heard arguments across the spectrum. Some in support of her thinking that she's doing a wonderful thing trying to reform, some saying that she's kind of like the cover and the scapegoat, you know, all of those things. I don't know how much of it is true, but this is why people like you are on the job to get down to the bottom of it, and the other reporters around the city and around the county and around the country should be getting to the bottom of it. What I'm saying is we need to ask those questions if we care about what is true. I, in the words of Malcolm, am for truth no matter who's speaking it, and I'm for justice no matter who's for or against it. This case, I don't know how we objectively see this as being justice.
All right, good points. And don't worry, our one-on-one requests are sitting in those MPD emails, and we're going to keep sending them so that she will hopefully do that one-on-one with us.